Good morning, beautiful people. Before we dive into today's critical stimulus update, I want to thank the thousands of seniors who've been reaching out about their payment concerns. You're not alone, and that's exactly why I've put together this comprehensive breakdown of the latest $2,200 stimulus package announced for January 2025. I know many of you have been anxiously waiting for solid information, especially after all the confusion from those misleading social media posts going around. Let me tell you, I've spent the last few days combing through every detail of this program, making sure I can give you the clearest, most accurate information possible. And what I discovered might surprise you. The eligibility requirements are quite different from previous stimulus payments. And there's actually some good news for many seniors who weren't eligible for past payments. Whether you're living solely on Social Security benefits or have additional income sources, you'll want to stay tuned because these changes could directly affect your bank account. Now, I know your time is valuable, so in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know. Who qualifies, exactly when you can expect your payment, how to make sure you're set up for direct deposit, and most importantly, what you need to do right now to avoid any delays in receiving your payment. Plus, I'll share 3 lesser-known tips that could help you qualify even if you think you might not be eligible. Before we get into all these important details, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. The stimulus landscape is constantly changing, and I want to make sure you never miss an update. Drop a comment below with your state so I can keep track of where our community members are from and provide more targeted information in future videos. Let's dive in. Now, let's get straight to what everyone's been asking about: the dollars and cents of this January 2025 stimulus package. I've been fielding hundreds of comments from our community members about the exact payment amounts, and I'm excited to break this down for you in a way that makes perfect sense. The base payment of $2,200 is just the beginning, and there are actually several ways this amount could increase based on your specific situation. First, let's talk about what makes this stimulus different from previous payments. Unlike past programs, this one has been specifically designed with seniors in mind. The government has finally recognized the unique financial challenges faced by our retired community, especially with the rising cost of healthcare and daily essentials. This is why they've structured the payment thresholds differently this time around. If you're receiving Social Security benefits, you'll be pleased to know that these benefits won't count against your eligibility in the same way they did for previous stimulus payments. Speaking of eligibility, I know this is the part many of you have been anxiously waiting for. Here's the beautiful thing about this new package: the income thresholds have been adjusted for inflation. For single filers, you can now earn up to $87,000 annually and still qualify for the full amount. For married couples filing jointly, that threshold has been increased to $174,000. And here's something that made me smile: they're not counting certain types of retirement income in these calculations. This means if you're receiving pension payments or making required minimum distributions from your retirement accounts, some of that income might not count against your eligibility. Let me share something personal with you. My own mother was worried she wouldn't qualify because of her small part-time job combined with her Social Security benefits. When I showed her how the new income calculations work, she was overjoyed to learn she'd be eligible for the full amount. This is exactly why I'm so passionate about getting this information out to all of you. There's so much misinformation floating around, and I want to make sure you have the accurate details you need. Now, let's talk about the payment dates because timing is crucial here. The Treasury Department has announced a structured rollout plan starting January 15, 2025. But here's something many people don't realize: you can actually take steps right now to ensure you're in the first wave of payments. I'll explain exactly how to do that in just a moment. But first, let me address something important about direct deposits. If you've received previous stimulus payments through direct deposit, you might assume you're all set for this one too. However, there's been a significant change in the system that you need to know about. The Treasury has implemented a new verification process that requires some recipients to reconfirm their banking information. Don't worry though, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to do this, and it's much simpler than it sounds. For those of you who prefer paper checks, I've got some important news too. The mailing schedule has been completely revamped for this stimulus round. Instead of going by last name alphabetically like they did before, they're using a new distribution system based on geographic location and local post office capacity. This might sound complicated, but it actually means many of you will receive your checks faster than in previous rounds. Let's talk about some of the additional benefits that come with this stimulus package that aren't making headlines. There's a special provision for seniors who are caregivers for dependent adults. If you're taking care of an adult child with disabilities or an elderly parent, you might be eligible for an additional $500 payment per dependent. This is a huge change from previous stimulus packages that mainly focused on dependent children under 17. I'm also seeing a lot of questions in our community about how this stimulus payment might affect other benefits. Here's some great news. This payment will not count as income for any federal benefits program. This means it won't affect your Social Security payments, Medicare benefits, or any other federal assistance you might be receiving. This was a major concern during previous stimulus rounds, so I'm really happy to see this clarification in the new legislation. Here's something interesting that many financial advisors aren't talking about. There's a special provision in this stimulus package for seniors who've experienced significant medical expenses in 2024. If you've had out-of-pocket medical costs exceeding $5,000 in 2024, you might be eligible for an additional supplement to your stimulus payment. This is part of the government's recognition of the heavy healthcare burden many seniors are carrying. Now, let's discuss the direct deposit setup process I mentioned earlier. The Treasury has launched a new online portal specifically for this stimulus payment. Don't worry if you're not tech savvy. I'm going to explain this in a way that makes it super simple. First, you'll need your Social Security number and either your driver's license or state ID number. The portal will ask for basic information about your bank account. That's your routing number and account number. You can find these on your checks or by logging into your online banking account. One thing I want to emphasize, and this is crucial, is the security aspect of this process. There are unfortunately lots of scammers trying to take advantage of this situation. Remember, the official Treasury website will never ask for your credit card information or request any kind of payment to process your stimulus. If anyone contacts you claiming to be from the government and asks for payment or personal financial information, that's a red flag. Here's a little known fact about this stimulus package that could really benefit many of you. There's a special appeal process built into the system. If you're initially deemed ineligible, you have a 30-day window to appeal the decision. This is especially important for those of you who've had recent changes in income or family situation. I've already helped several community members navigate this appeal process successfully, and it's not as daunting as it might sound. Let's talk about some practical steps you can take right now to prepare for this payment. First, make sure your address is current with the Social Security Administration if you've moved recently. Second, if you've changed banks or closed an account since your last stimulus payment, you'll need to update this information. And third, gather your 2023 tax return if you filed one. This might be needed for the verification process. I'm also getting lots of questions about what happens if you share a bank account with a family member, or if you're using a representative payee for your Social Security benefits. The good news is that the Treasury has simplified this process compared to previous stimulus rounds. Joint accounts are fully eligible for direct deposit, and representative payees will be able to assist with the registration process just like they do with other federal benefits. Here's something that's particularly relevant for our snowbird community members who spend part of the year in different states. The Treasury has implemented a new system to ensure your payment reaches you regardless of where you are when it's issued. This is a huge improvement over previous stimulus rounds where some seasonal residents experienced delays due to address complications. Let's also address a concern many of you have raised in the comments of my previous videos. What about seniors who don't file tax returns because their income is primarily from Social Security? The IRS has confirmed that they will use Social Security Administration data to automatically process payments for these individuals. However, there's a small step you might want to take to ensure faster processing, which I'll explain in detail in my next video later this week. Another important aspect of this stimulus package that's flying under the radar is the special consideration for seniors who are still paying off student loans, either their own or ones they took out for their children or grandchildren. There's a provision that might allow for an additional payment if you're in this situation. This is particularly relevant given the recent changes in student loan repayment programs. Now, let's discuss something that's causing some confusion: the relationship between this stimulus payment and Medicare Part B premiums. Many of you have asked whether accepting this stimulus payment will affect your Medicare costs. I'm happy to tell you that this payment has absolutely no impact on your Medicare premiums or coverage. In fact, there's a separate provision in the package that might help with healthcare costs, which I'll be covering in detail in an upcoming video. For those of you who are still working part-time or running small businesses, There's important information you need to know about how this stimulus payment interacts with your earned income. The good news is that the Treasury has created flexible guidelines that generally work in your favor. They're using a different calculation method that typically results in a higher payment for seniors who are still actively earning. Let me share another personal story that illustrates why understanding these details is so important. My neighbor, Martha, initially thought she wouldn't qualify because she runs a small online business selling crafts. She was about to not even apply for the stimulus. But after I explained how the new income calculations work, she discovered she was well within the eligibility limits. This is exactly why I'm so passionate about getting this information out to our community. As we wrap up this detailed overview, I want to address one final concern that many of you have raised. What happens if you don't receive your payment when expected? The Treasury has set up a dedicated phone line and online tracking system specifically for seniors. This is a vast improvement over previous stimulus rounds, where getting information about delayed payments was often frustrating and time consuming. Remember, this stimulus package is designed to provide real, meaningful support to our senior community. Don't let anyone tell you that you're not eligible without first checking the actual requirements. I've seen too many seniors miss out on previous benefits because they assumed they wouldn't qualify. This time, the rules have been written with you in mind, and I want to make sure every eligible person in our community receives the support they deserve. And just a quick reminder before we get to the questions in our next segment, these details are specifically for the January 2025 stimulus package. Keep an eye on our channel for updates, as there are already discussions about potential additional support programs later in the year. As always, I'm here to help you navigate these important financial matters and ensure you don't miss out on any benefits you're entitled to receive.